everybody, Nigel here, Nigel's Modelling Bench, but you knew that, and this is going to be a little in-between project between other stuff I'm working on. So as you all know, we've got the Stuka, which is now, as I'm sitting here now, it's done. Part 15 is ready to go out. I'm working on the Stug for the next Premiere build, which has been kindly given to me by Premium Hobbies. And then in between, I'm going to be working on this. I did a review of this lovely set the other day, and this is basically the Tallboy we're looking at today. And as I said in the review, the Tallboy, you have three ways of buying it. You can buy it, one, with the trolley. You can buy it, two, as a set to be put into your Lancaster. Or three, you can buy it as a set with the actual bulge Bombay doors, so you can put it in the Lancaster and have it fitted with the doors open and everything. So I've spoken to Graham. He said he's just working on a new design of chain or something. This is called the chain, the mounting thing, and I suggested, why don't you actually make it available with it open, because it actually opens up and hangs down. And I've read that there's a rope attached to each half of it, so they had to pull it back up with inside. The crew had to pull the chain back up inside the Bombay with a rope, so that the doors could shut. Otherwise it'd just be dangling down and the Bombay doors wouldn't shut. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but he thought that was a great idea, and he's going to actually do it with it open as well now. So I thought I'd just have a look at making this up, because it's such a simple kit. I mean, I've never actually built a resin kit. I've only ever done resin aftermarket. So I thought, it's a fairly simple model. We're basically going to be gluing two halves together, and because we're going to be using epoxy, we're not going to be using any of this. This can go away. It's gone. Finished with. We're just going to use a knife, some sanding sticks, my Infinity sanding sticks, and I'm probably going to use the Matadors more than anything because they're waterproof. You can use these Matador sticks wet. I don't think you can with the zebras. I'll have a look. But I've just noticed in here we've got a little bit of flash, so I'm just going to clean that out, and you can see how easily done that is. And also on the nose of the bomb, I noticed there was a bit of flash. Now with resin, if ever you can get away with cutting rather than sanding, I would always recommend that you do, because it's the far safer way to go. So that's all good on there. So is this going to go together neatly now? Yeah, we've still got a little bit. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm not going to be putting a mask on because I'm talking to you, but what I'm going to do is use water. And if you keep things wet, so if you wet your sanding stick, keep it wet. When you sand, the dust will not become airborne, it will sit on the stick. Okay, and then you can simply wash your stick out under the tap, and then you're good to go. That noise you can hear, that disgusting choking sound you just heard, is Jess playing underneath the bench by my feet. There was a choking sound and now she's gone quiet. Oh dear. There we go. How's that for a fit? Whoops. How is that for a fit? Look at that. Put those two together. But they keep wanting to come apart. But you can't see the seam. But you can just. So yeah, we're not going to use super glue to glue this together. We're going to use epoxy. I've got two epoxies here. I've got the Gorilla Glue, which is a 5-minute. This stuff is wonderful. It's very good stuff. I've also got this one here, which is the Araldite, and this is the normal. So basically, you can see you can work with it for 90 minutes, and after 8 hours you can be handled, and then after 14 hours it achieves full strength. So like if you're doing something like that big resin FW189 I showed you, I would recommend using this, because especially on big stuff like wings and everything. What are you doing, Jess? Especially on big things like wings and stuff, and then you've got the opportunity to move them and play with them, rather than just have it welded together in 5 minutes. So I'm going to be using that on this one, I think, or maybe I'll use this one because it is quite simple. We'll just get it together and get some rubber bands in there. Now this disc that goes in here, we can see on the instructions, in the instructions, it tells you to use this. It helps you to line it all up. Then all I'm going to do is score that there, and then I can just break that out. Okay, and then again with a wet sanding stick, I'm just going to sand off the excess flash so I don't create any dust. Okay, and that's all nice and smooth now. But what I'm going to do, because I'm going to glue this up and not have it exposed, I'm actually going to keep this because this is actually a beautiful piece of resin with lots of little nuts and end bolts on them. You can see on there we've got a hexagonal nut all the way around with like a stud, the stud coming through. So for example, I've got that Lancia Delta I'm doing, and where the front struts come through the inner rings, there should be like a stud with a nut on it, and they're going to depict that beautifully. So I'm not going to use that, I'm going to keep that. What I'm going to do is measure it. So it is 19.2, yeah, 19.2 mil diameter. So what I'm going to do is get a bit of plastic card and cut a new one out of a piece of plastic card. Okay, I am a very lucky boy when it comes to cutting circles. John has kindly sent me this, and this is a circle cutter he had lying around surplus to requirements. And he sent me this, and I haven't actually set it up yet, but I do need to read the instructions, and I see that John has sent me an email. Thank you very much, John. And I need to get myself set up on this and work out how I'm going to cut thicker plastic card with it, because it's sort of recommended for doing up to 1 mil, I think, or is it 0.8? I can't remember now. So I'm going to use this just for now, and then I'm going to get used to that, because the one thing, this is the same as the display circle cutter. The one thing that I don't see is how you can put it down, use it to score, and then lift it up and then maybe put it down and pick the circle up again, whereas with a compass you have the pinpoint. So I don't really know how you do that, but that's not big enough there. Will we get it out of this corner here? Yes, we will. So just going to score that around there. I mean, these plastic compass cutters, they're not very good at all, but they do the job, and I've had this for years, and I've done lots and lots of scratch building with it, and it's always done me fine. But they do tend to, you can see that it's done it there. It just kind of picks up another circle. You see just inside that line there on the left hand side, you've got 2 circles there now. So I don't know which is the right one. So that is the biggest problem with it. Just going to keep going. Right, I've made my circle. That took some doing, I'll tell you. Wow, I think it was about 4 circles I ended up making. But it's that circle cutter, you sort of cut one circle and it comes out too big. So you make it a bit smaller, like literally, you know, sort of comes out at 22 mil. So you go like a millimetre smaller and it comes at 18 sort of thing. It's, oh, terrible. Right, so in the end what I did was made it too big and then just basically went around holding my hand and just scoring the outside away to make it smaller. So there we go, we don't need those tail parts yet. I'll knock that on the floor because I don't want to run my chair over it. So let's pick that back up. So that's the piece I'm not putting in, and that's my replacement. So these two halves go together like this, and then this pops in the back like that. So there we go. Right, so what I am going to do, just before I do anything else, I am going to grab a drop of IP. I'm going to use a cheap, nasty cotton bud rather than a nice Simon one. I call them Simon ones because I'm getting lots of gifts sent to me lately by you guys. Thank you very much. Simon sent me some lovely wooden cocktail sticks, cotton buds, and they're great for weathering and stuff because they don't go all floppy on the ends. Because, as we all know, because protecting the environment, we're using paper stems now, but it makes them not a lot of good for modelling. I'm all for saving the environment, but I don't see the problem having wooden ones because they will also return to ground. So I don't know. Right, so we'll put that to one side for the spares box. We'll put this together, just dry fit that. That's lovely. That disc will go in the back there and fit like a glove once you get it all lined up, and it helps keep everything aligned as well. So what I'm going to do is glue this together. So first of all, we need to mix up some, let's get rid of that IPA. We need to mix up some of the araldite. I think I'm going to use the long life because that means I only have to mix it up once. I have opened this before, so I'm just going to hold this without getting glue on my fingers. So I'm just going to run round here and put some glue in. And I want it all to ooze out. That's why I'm putting a lot on there. Not as easy as working with plastic, I've got to be honest. I wonder if somebody will come up with a 2-part 5-minute epoxy extra thin. That'd be good, wouldn't it? I don't think I need to apply it to both halves anyway. But I'm guessing this stuff will dry pretty hard, so I should be able to sand it and it'll act as my filler. And if it isn't, then we'll have to gouge a bit out. We'll just scribe a line and then put some filler in there. Okay, so that's like that. So now I can put these together, align the pin in there, got glue on my fingers. You can see the glue oozing out, and then I'm going to put some around the back. Just like that. But as I got it mixed enough to use with the other end anyway, with the tail end. There we go. And then that will go into there, he says. It's good that if you get them the right size, it will help line everything up. So then I am going to wipe my fingers off, which I'll put a pair of gloves on there, and then get a rubber band. Now these are cheap nasty rubber, oh, I've got glue on my bloody bench. These are cheap nasty rubber bands from Tesco's, and I'll bet as soon as they get near the epoxy they just split open, because they are crap, I can tell you. If you've got a model that's, you know, a bit of a funny fit and it takes a bit of pulling in, you put these on, come back the next day or next hour, they just spring off. Same I use them for keeping resin molds together. I'm getting this glue everywhere. God, I'd much rather use Tamiya extra thin. Right, so that's that done. And the back is in. I'm just going to wipe that back off. And then I'm going to leave that glue oozing out. But I'm going to put another rubber band on the front. In fact, I'm going to roll that one down to the front. Put a big one around the rest of it. That glue smells like damp dog. Now I know I've got a dog, but she's not damp at the moment. She might be in a minute because we're due for a walk and I think it's raining. Get all this all married up nicely. We're going to go for a lovely seamless joint. So we've got no step there whatsoever. We've got a tiny step there. So I'm going to go 50-50. We've got a step there and a step there. That's cool. So that half is slightly smaller than that half. I mean, I'm talking, it's like a 5,000 step. We're talking nothing. What I'm trying to do is equal it out so that I've got equal amounts to sand off each side. I'm tempted to pop this disc out of here. Like so. Got more glue on the cutting mat. And then put some more araldite down inside there. Just as a bit of a backup, bit of a buttress for the joint. Okay, so finally we got these together. This is 2 days later now, and I've sanded out the joints. As I said, I've never built a resin kit before, and I have never ever, thinking about it, used araldite to stick 2 bits of kit together and then hold them and everything. Never again. I'll stick with the 5-minute. I think what I would do in future is leave the end off, tack it together with super glue, getting all the lines matched up, you know, just 4 places, and then put 5-minute epoxy down inside and let it sort of capillary into the joint, and then sand it out. Using that araldite, I've cut a lot of the video out because I just got in such a state with it. It's almost like you've added grease and it just makes everything just slide about. So when I did this one, I used super glue and 5-minute epoxy, and it just went so much better. Yeah, so they're going to go together like that now, and you can see where it's going to make the Tallboy bomb. There's actually a recess in here. You can see that recess around the inside actually sits on this rear diameter. So if when you put it together it's a bit of a baggy joint, you can just come along and sand some material away from there and you're good to go. So what I want to do now, this tail half has panel lines on it, and it's probably my fault, but as you can see, like particularly here, the panel lines don't line up, which is a very, very common trait with model kits everywhere. It's not just, you know, it's not the smaller production kits. I mean, you'll find a lot of kits, the panel lines don't line up. So so what we've got to do is fill one half in and then re-scribe them. So I've got my Rocket Hot super thin, and I'm going to use this one purely because it dries in no time. So got that there. I've got my, where's my glue looper? There's my glue looper. So all I'm going to do now is come along with this and just fill in one half of the panel lines. This one here is absolutely fine, one at the front, but I'm going to fill in these here and I should be able to sand them out and then re-scribe the complete circle all the way around. These two here are actually only just out, and you'd probably get away with not doing this, but the thing is the back end is like a light grey colour. I think it's certainly light in colour. Is it sky? Here we go. Yeah, it's sky. So you know, if you're going to put a wash on there with that light colour, any misalignment here is going to stick out like a sore thumb. So best to just get it right, isn't it? And scribing resin is the easiest thing in the world. Well, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's not as easy as eating cake, but it's certainly a lot easier than scribing some plastic materials, because it's just so forgiving. And I say this resin is lovely. As I say, I must find out from Graham what it is and then start using it myself. Okay, so with all the missing lines, the misaligned lines filled with super glue, we've gone around and scribed them all even now, so you can see they're all even and straight around. One of the issues you get is a sort of rough finish, and if this was styrene I would just brush it over now with extra thin just to smooth out any rough edges, but of course with resin I can't do that. So basically when we prime it we'll see how it looks. But basically to get these lines in is always very difficult, particularly on a cone. If it was something like this, a straight, you could hold something around there or some tape or whatever and scribe around it. But when it's a cone, it's always difficult. So the way I do this is I bring in the Lego. Okay, so you can use Lego, you can use a block, you can use sanders. I mean, here I've got my, you know, I've got one sanding, board here, there's another board there, so I can come in there, I can use that, I can put a sander, I can put a metal block, and then use rules as shims, get the right height, and then once I've got the right height, just go around and just, as you can see, I'll put it right over here, as you can see, just go around and scribe the line. Obviously holding it down firm and not having it rocking about. And then for taller stuff, out comes the Lego, which is bloody brilliant for this sort of thing. You just make it, I've got this frame made up here, this block like that, and I can hold that in the top of there, hold that on there, make sure it's clean underneath, and then just scribe around like that and make sure you're keeping it level as you go, and do a little bit at a time. Don't try and do too much, you don't want to be rocking and stuff. Just do a little bit at a time, go round just like that and just scribe a new line, and you end up with, like you can see there on the end here, you can see we've got a new line, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but there's the old line next to it which is filled with super glue. And then anywhere where you miss a line or scratch or whatever, just go around and repair that with super glue. Then I go around with a blade, okay, the fine blade, not the coarse blade, the fine blade on my razor saw, just to square everything up. Okay, and then if you want to, then you can go around with, I've got these scribers here. These things are awesome. These are the Funtech scribers from Premium Hobbies, and I don't know if you can see that, but on the end you've got this little scribing blade, but it's actually ground square. So most scribers, as you know, like this, like the P cutter, the end is ground to a point. So the deeper you go, the wider it goes, whereas this is ground square. So I could almost go all the way through this and never go, this is a 0.15, so that's 6 thou. And I could go all the way through this and never go wider than 6 thou. And you can see how good it is at cleaning those grooves out. So, you know, I'd recommend these to everyone. They're absolutely brilliant. They're fragile. They're carbide, obviously, because they have to be rock hard and sharp. So they're carbide, which means they're brittle, which means they break very easy because they're thin on the end. If you remember me on my first days of these, I've got the 0.1 tool here, and I just put it down and broke it. So there is a holder that comes with them as well. Yeah, lovely, really nice little tools. So there we go. So that's that all done now. I've also re-scribed these circles. I think this one here might need some attention, but really, to be honest, guys, if you're doing plastic or resin, whatever, the only way you're ever actually going to see what is good and what is bad is when it's primed. So if we prime it and we find that one, we trench on this side and it's nice on this side, we can fill that in with some Mr. Surface or super glue, start again, sand it back, whatever. There's a million things you can do. You know, it's never the end. So basically now they're going to get glued together once I've got this primed, and then see where we go from there. Okay, so pushing forward, here we are now a couple of days later. Obviously the 5-minute epoxy has all gone hard. The jig that I made, the Lego jig, worked absolutely wonderfully, to be honest. It was bloody great. I left it in there for about 20 minutes, let the 5-minute epoxy really go off. And then what I did was just put it on the bench and actually turned it against the datum and made sure that the end stayed kind of straight, so that it was rolling straight. And then I did the same with that end. And then the other thing I noticed was I can put it between my fingers and I can spin it and see that it's true. So that's another thing you could do. So I was able to just, because the glue was still sort of soft, I was able to tweak it, get it all right, and then just leave it to cure. And then what I did was put some thin super glue into the seam here. You've got this seam between the tail and the actual bomb itself, which should be a nice tight fit. And I had a couple of little baggy areas in mine, probably because I didn't use the proper end. I messed around with it, didn't I? But anyway, what I did was just pulled it in with a rubber band, super glued it in place, and then you can see I've gone over to Mr. Surfacer where the super glue has kind of pulled the resin in as it's cured. So because it is very thin there to keep it in scale and looking nice. So really is a lovely representation now of a Tallboy, and you can see I did the re-scribing and everything there. And it's all what I did. I went over to Mr. Surfacer and then just sanded it off, let it sink in, and then sanded it off, and you end up with a much fainter line then, much fainter panel line. So we'll see how this looks when it's all painted. So now what we've got to do in this very complicated kit with mine, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 parts. I've never spent so long over 9 parts, but it's worth getting it right, you know. You want it to be nice and true and looking great. It's going to look great up underneath the Lancaster or sat on the trolley. So, spoken to Graham in the week, and he tells me that he actually designs these kits in mindset of actually having these parts so you can snap them off. And I know that at least one person has commented in Resin, I think it was in the review of this, the one thing that scares him is all the great big plugs and everything. So apparently Graham has done this so you can snap them off. So you've got these 3 fuses here, and sure enough, I mean, you can see this is the only sprue I've got. I haven't rehearsed this, and sure enough you can just scrape them off, and then you can come along with a knife and just trim off the resin. It's a lovely resin to work with. It really is lovely stuff. And you can just trim off the bits there, just like so, and then it's minimal sanding cleanup. So you're not having to, often you get a great big plug that you have to cut off with a saw, make loads of dust, then you're sanding it forever. With this, it's just a case of snapping them off. Now Graham has told me, he has assured me that I can just snap these off and they will come away. And I said, if I break any, you will replace them. He said, yes, of course. So let's give it a go. I'm not happy about this. It feels like it's going to break something. Okay, so what I'm going to do, okay, just to show you that we don't have to start worrying about making loads of dust and everything, because that's the biggest problem with resin, is when you have to start sanding off great big mold plugs and stuff, it's the dust. So all I've done there is lightly scored it with a knife, and we're able to break it away. So that's what I would suggest. Come in with your knife. I'm not pushing hard, I'm just gently scoring it, just making a weak patch. And come along here. I didn't go in there, did I? Come along in the back. And then down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then these parts will just snap out. There we go. No sanding, no dust, no nothing. So really, really nice actually, to not have to start worrying about sanding plugs off. And you know, even the parts I make, they have plugs on them. So the other thing I noticed in the instructions, Graham has said down here, the fins do not need to be fitted tight to the tail body. You will find the slight radius in the corner of the fin tabs will make the fin stand off the tail body with a slight gap, as in the inset photo. And you can see we've got a photo here, and it's showing the fin actually sat away from the body. So let's see how it looks. Get the right way around, Nige. Okay, so I just need to trim off some of that fret from there. Okay, so we've obviously got issues. Let's try it in that one, because that one hasn't been glued. So we've obviously got one there that's a little bit too wide. There we go, that one's going to go in. So you can see there, that one's sitting in there, and we've got the gap as required. Probably a bit of a big gap actually. I'm just going to relieve the ends slightly, just like so, and then just scrape away that bit of fret that's left in there. It is quite tight, I don't want to break anything. It's probably because I flooded it all with 5-minute epoxy, it's probably got in there and affected the fit. There we go. So there we are, that's a lovely fit in there. And you can see we've got the correct twist on them. They don't actually sit straight. They have a twist. I guess they sort of make it twist as it goes down. And it kind of looks like it's the wrong way round. But looking at the aerofoil section, it looks like it's the correct way round. I'll have to check my references. Oh, it is correct. You can see here, I have got that correct. So it looks a bit strange. It doesn't look like what you'd expect. Because normally you would expect the longer edge to be forward, but on this it's not. So is that going to go in there? No, I'm going to open this up a bit. Don't want to force anything and break it. But this resin, it's very, for resin, it's very soft. It's almost like HK models plastic, dare I say. It's for resin, it's very nice to work with. HK models plastic, as plastic goes, is quite hard, but like Hasegawa is. But my favourite plastic, as we all know, is the border model stuff. But as resin goes, this is lovely to work with. Resin is generally very hard, brittle, and quite difficult to work with, and snaps easily. There we go. So that's gone in there, and again you can see we've got this sort of helix on there, So it's giving it a kind of corkscrew effect. As it's going to go down, it's going to twist. So I'll get these others cleaned up, get these in, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've got them all dry fitted now, and I've got a nice gap on there. I think what I might do is, once the glue's dry, is go into Mr. Surfacer and then remove it with a cotton bud, so you end up with a gap, but you won't be able to see through it. Maybe I'll just leave it as it is. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like when it's painted or when it's primed. But what I'm going to do now is glue them in. So what I'm going to do, and this is a basic modelling tip for anyone that's fairly new to the hobby, I'm using super glue. I'm using a medium viscosity super glue, and I'm applying it in the hole, not on the part. If I put it on there, as I push it in, it will scrape it all up and it will make a mess. If I put it in the hole, then it doesn't. All it will do is push it in. And that's a general sort of tip for anyone building any kind of models. When you're putting something into a hole, put the glue in the hole, not on the tab. You can imagine if I put it on a tab now, as I push it in, it will scrape all the glue up and we'll have a big mess. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Just like so. And then the last one. Push that one in there. Came out easy, just going back in. There we go. And there we are, job done. So they're all in there nice and solid. Just check they're all nice and square, and they are. They've gone in beautifully. They fitted really, really well. And that's why I'm using a medium viscosity super glue, so it doesn't instantly dry. It gives you a few seconds to work with it. Not, you don't get an hour or anything, but you get a minute or two to play with it. There we are. Happy with that, nice and square. So there we go, and that is our Tallboy finished, ready for priming and painting. So I'll get it primed and painted, and then I'll put up another short video and just go through it. So what have been my thoughts with this? It's it's a beautiful little kit. It's very, very simple, very easy to do. I'm looking forward to getting these parts from Graham so that I can put it in the belly of a Lancaster if I want to. And I'm looking forward to putting these decals on because they're going to look great. They're going to really set it off, and we're not going to weather it as such, but we can sort of knock back the newness of the bomb part. I think the tail would be pretty immaculate, but I think the bomb part would have been knocked about a bit and chipped and scarred and stuff. So we can do a bit of that, bit of rust or whatever. But no, I think I made this really difficult for myself by using epoxy, particularly the fact that I used the Araldite and not a quick setting epoxy. So my advice to you, if you're building one of these, is use some 5-minute epoxy, dab a couple of bits of super glue to lock it in place, job done, leave it for overnight and then you can work on it. Or just use super glue. I don't like using super glue in large areas like this because it's brittle, and if it was super glue I could squeeze it down and crack it probably, but whereas because it's epoxy it's more forgiving, it's more flexible. As I say, I put super glue in there literally for speed, and because it's thin it has the capillary action to pull it in, and that's why I used it. But and you can see around here I've got the Mr. Surface around that band. That's where I had the rubber band and it squeezed it, and while the hot action of the super glue has worked, it's just pulled it all together, and that's what I wanted to happen really, was to just get that all fitting nice and tightly around the bomb as it should be. This, it looks to me like from images I've seen, this is like a separate plate. It looks like they fitted the tail and then this separate plate. Actually, Graham's actually moulded the seam in there. It's got the seam in here, so you've got your two seams where the parts are split. You can't even see, there's one there, obviously one opposite, which you sort of blend of sand and everything. You've got this seam here, which I'm going to have to clean out because I've got some surfacer in there. and that's the actual split. I think it's like a band that goes round. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that, guys. Thanks for watching. It's been a quick one, but as I said, I'd recommend this thoroughly to anyone, beginner or experienced, really. It's a lovely little model of a fantastic piece of British wartime history. If you're British, then you probably think that way. But very, very nice. You can see how big it is in my hand. It's huge. Let's just give it a measure on the length. It is about 8 inches, just over 200 millimeters long. It's about 204, 205 millimeters long. So it's a big old beast. And the diameter is, I think it's 38 mil, was it? No, 29.7. The real one was 38 inches, wasn't it? So yeah, 30 millimeters. Very, very nice indeed. So really happy with that. It's going to look great on the trolley. It's going to look great in the bottom of a Lancaster. So there we are. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon. And keep an eye out for another build. I'm probably going to do the tractor next. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And if you don't like it, hit the unlike twice. Bye for now.